It's midnight and you're watching Nightline with me, Natasha Busst. The top stories. Fifth Prime Minister Tun Abdullah Ahmad Badawi dies at 85. And Trump tariffs, Malaysia seeks to reduce rate and expand list of exemptions. Former Prime Minister Tun Abdullah Ahmad Badawi, who passed away on Monday evening, will be laid to rest in the Warriors Mausoleum at National Mosque in Kuala Lumpur on Tuesday after Zohor prayers. Abdullah, who served as Malaysia's fifth Prime Minister, was 85. Abdullah's son-in-law and former Health Minister Khairi Jamaluddin broke the news of the demise at about 7:30 p.m. over social media. Later, he provided the details at a media conference.
Seperti mana yang saya telah pun muat naik tadi pada jam 7:10 malam, Pak Lah telah pun meninggal dunia, kembali ke rahmatullah. Semua ahli-ahli keluarga beliau berada bersama dengan beliau, di sisi beliau.
The former Member of Parliament for Kepala Batas was admitted to the National Heart Institute (IJN) Cardiac Care Unit at 1 a.m. on Sunday due to breathing difficulties. IJN Chief Executive Officer Professor Datuk Sri Dr. Muhammad Izani Muhammad Taib said Abdullah's age was a contributing factor. He explained that the breathing difficulties led to reduced function of other vital organs. Abdullah's body was brought back to his residence at Bait Badawi at Karkosa, Kuala Lumpur at 9:05 p.m. On Tuesday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m, his body will be placed at the main prayer hall of the National Mosque for the public to pay their final respects. Funeral prayers will be held after Zohor at the National Mosque, where he will be laid to rest. His Majesty Sultan Ibrahim, King of Malaysia, also commemorated the passing of late Tun Abdullah. The king said this in a post on his social media account on Monday. In paying tribute to the former premier, Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim reflected on his last visit to the country's fifth Prime Minister, describing it as a poignant memory. The Prime Minister noted that amid our often turbulent world of politics, Pak Lah will always a calming presence. In his message, Anwar said Pak Lah was not just a leader, he was a man of noble spirit who brought a new narrative to the politics of power in Malaysia. Besides being known as Malaysia's father of human capital development, Abdullah was also recognized for his Islam Hadari concept. Anwar highlighted that through his Islam Hadari approach, Abdullah bridged progress and development with core values. His administration was grounded in the 9th Malaysia Plan, which drove economic growth and focused on human capital and rural development. The Prime Minister remembered Abdullah as a leader who never showed anger, clung to power, or raised his voice in fury, even under pressure. Anwar said he recalled how, during a dark and painful chapter of his own life, Pak Lah never added salt to the wound with cruel words. That was a man who always chose peace, even when retaliation would have been easy. Anwar extended his heartfelt condolences to Abdullah's wife, Tun Jan, their son-in-law, Khairi Jamaluddin, and the entire family. The Prime Minister concluded his message by saying, "The whole nation mourns the loss of a grounded statesman. Farewell, Pak Lah. Malaysia is forever indebted to your service and wisdom." As the nation mourns his passing, Tun Abdullah Ahmad Badawi is remembered not only as a leader, but as a man of principle whose politics were defined by moderation, sincerity, and a steadfast belief in good governance. In an emotional tribute, Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Sri Ahmad Zahid Hamidi said the fifth Prime Minister mentored him and opened doors in the early stages of his career. The Deputy Prime Minister said he is deeply affected by Abdullah's passing, noting his high regard for the statesman. Zahid added that Abdullah will be remembered as a statesman of noble character, calm leadership, and a steadfast commitment to prioritizing the interests of the people. Foreign Minister Datuk Seri Muhammad Hassan said Malaysia has lost a patriot with Abdullah's passing.
Seluruh negara akan kehilangan beliau. Walaupun di saat-saat akhir kehidupan Allahyarham Tun Badawi, Tun tidak berapa sihat, tetapi pembagiannya akan dirasai oleh seluruh rakyat Malaysia di atas jasa-jasa beliau, di atas khidmat bakti beliau kepada tanah air. Kita ucapkan banyak terima kasih dan kita berdoa sama-sama agar roh Tun Abdullah ditempatkan di kalangan orang-orang yang beramal soleh itu, insyaAllah.
Abdullah, known as the father of human capital development, leaves behind a lasting legacy through the introduction of Islam Hadari, a concept that gained recognition even at the international level. Abdullah was elected as Prime Minister on October 31st, 2003, succeeding Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, and served until April 2nd, 2009. He was later succeeded by then Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Seri Najib Tun Razak. He was the sixth UMNO president and was conferred the title Tun by then Yang di-Pertuan Agong Tuanku Mizan Zainal Abidin for his service to the nation. Abdullah is survived by his wife Tun Jan Abdullah and two children, Kamaluddin and Nori. Born on November 26, 1939 in Kampung Perlis, Bayan Lepas in Pulau Pinang, he received his early education at Sekolah Kebangsaan Pematang Bertam before continuing at the Bukit Mertajam High School, Penang Methodist Boys School, and a religious school established by his family. He later graduated from University Malaya in 1964 with a Bachelor of Arts with honors in Islamic Studies. In 1965, Abdullah joined UMNO before resigning from government service in 1978 to pursue politics full-time. After being elected to the UMNO Supreme Council in 1981, he served multiple terms as vice president before becoming deputy president in 2000. With a political career spanning over 4 decades, Abdullah cemented his legacy as a reform-minded leader and a strong advocate for civilizational Islam and anti-corruption reforms. Malaysia will seek to reduce the tariff rate imposed by the White House and expand the list of tax exemptions on Malaysian goods exports to the United States. The matter was discussed at the inaugural meeting of the National Geo-Economic Command Centre, NGCC, chaired by the Prime Minister. Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, who is also Finance Minister, reaffirmed the government's commitment towards protecting the interests of the people and businesses in Malaysia. The steps include enforcing anti-dumping duties, countervailing taxes, and imposing safeguards to shield domestic industries from redirected exports stemming from global trade tensions. The government will also intensify market diversification and target the exports of electronics, petroleum products, palm oil, and processed foods at new and emerging markets. As one of Malaysia's key trading partners, the US accounted for 11.3% of total trade in 2024. Meanwhile, the country's commodity industry is not exempt from the impact of Washington's tariffs. However, Plantation and Commodities Minister Datuk Seri Johari Abdul Ghani is confident that local commodity companies are competitive and are adjusting themselves to current developments.
Kalau compare kita dengan Indonesia kena 32%, kita kena 24%. So on that score kita ada advantage. Tetapi kita juga kena fikirkan, walaupun China tinggi, jadi rubber produk kita akan lebih kompetitif kalau compare dengan China. Tapi China ada capacity yang besar.
He explained that the value of Malaysia's commodity exports to the US is about 21 billion ringgit annually. This includes palm products, rubber furniture, ground cocoa, and cocoa butter. Chinese President Xi Jinping will begin a 3-day state visit to Malaysia starting Tuesday. The Foreign Ministry said the visit from April 15th to 17th is at the invitation of His Majesty Sultan Ibrahim, King of Malaysia. During his visit, Xi will be accorded a state welcoming ceremony, followed by an audience with Sultan Ibrahim at Istana Negara. The king will also graciously host a state banquet in honor of Xi and his delegation. Xi is scheduled to hold a meeting with Prime Minister Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim to discuss bilateral cooperation as well as exchange views on regional and international issues of mutual interest. Total trade between the two countries is valued at 484.12 billion ringgit in 2024, representing 16.8% of Malaysia's total global trade. As chair of ASEAN and country coordinator for ASEAN-China dialogue relations, the foreign ministry said Malaysia remains committed to advancing the comprehensive strategic partnership between ASEAN and China. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim said Xi's visit to Malaysia is part of ongoing efforts to strengthen bilateral ties between Malaysia and China. During the Prime Minister's office daily briefing on Monday, Anwar's senior press secretary Tunku Nashul Abaida said the visit had been planned earlier.
Meskipun lawatan ini berlangsung dalam suasana geopolitik dan geoekonomi serantau yang mencabar, ia telah dirancang lebih awal sebagai sebahagian daripada usaha berterusan untuk memperkukuh hubungan dua hala antara kedua-dua negara ini.
He reiterated Malaysia's position as a trading nation that upholds openness and maintains a balanced relationship with all international partners. As ASEAN chair, Malaysia also bears the important responsibility of continuing to promote regional inclusivity and peace. Xi's last state visit to Malaysia was in 2013, during which both countries elevated diplomatic relations to a comprehensive strategic partnership. Malaysia and China established diplomatic relations on May 31st, 1974, both countries having marked the 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations last year, enjoy strong bilateral ties.
Xi's visit to Malaysia, which coincides with Malaysia's term as ASEAN chair, underscores China's recognition of Malaysia's crucial role in the region's trade dynamics.
If Beijing sees ASEAN as a very important partner, then we can reciprocate it with a few concessions from China. So it's very critical. Being the chairman of ASEAN, I think we can lead the way the other 9 members of ASEAN, how to negotiate, how to gain the benefit from China in this case.
On another note, Prime Minister Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim has reiterated that announcements on government allocations must not be made during an election period. He also stressed that the use of government machinery for campaign purposes is strictly prohibited.
This comes following the recent announcement by Housing and Local Government Minister Ngako Meng, who unveiled 6.13 million ringgit in allocations for 33 development projects in the Tapa Parliamentary constituency, which includes the Air Kuning state seat. Anwar clarified that the announcement was made last Thursday before nomination day for the Air Kuning by-election.
Setelah penamaan calon, saya ingin pilihan raya. Itu keputusan kerajaan. Ada ni? Siapa umum ada? Ada. Ada? Siapa? 6 juta. 6.6. That was before nominations. Kalau selepas itu kita kena bagi amaran, tidak boleh.
The Prime Minister was speaking to the media after attending a town hall session with staff and agencies of the Finance Ministry in Putrajaya on Monday morning. Previously, electoral watchdog group Busst criticised Ngako Meng's announcement, calling it inappropriate given that the Air Kuning state seat is currently facing a by-election. Nomination was held last Saturday, while polling is set for April 26th.
The Road Transport Department is set to finalize new speed limits for heavy vehicles from next month. Its Director General, Dato' Aidi Fadli Ramli, said the move is aimed at reducing the rising number of accidents involving such vehicles.
Kita nampak memang kes untuk kenderaan perdagangan ni makin meningkat dan salah satu faktornya adalah kenderaan-kenderaan ini membawa kenderaan mereka melebihi had laju yang ditetapkan. Jadi salah satu langkah untuk mengurangkan kadar kemalangan adalah untuk mengurangkan speed, mengurangkan had laju kenderaan-kenderaan ini. Jadi ini yang kita sedang perincikan.
The new speed limit guidelines will apply to commercial vehicles weighing over 7,500 kilograms. This is part of the department's broader effort to improve road safety following earlier measures, such as enforcing a ban on heavy vehicles from using the rightmost lane on highways. In Singapore, prominent property magnate Ong Beng Seng, who is set to plead guilty in a case related to a graft scandal involving a former Singapore Prime Minister, will step down as managing director of his firm. Singapore-listed Hotel Properties Limited said the billionaire wishes to devote more time to focus on his health. The 79-year-old will also not put himself up for re-election as a board director at the firm's annual general meeting on April 29th. Ong was scheduled to plead guilty in early April in relation to a charge of obstructing justice related to former Singapore Transport Minister S. Iswaran, who was earlier jailed for obtaining gifts from the property tycoon. The Malaysian-born billionaire was permitted to do so at a later date after requesting time to obtain detailed reports from his doctors on his medical condition and the ongoing monitoring and treatment.
Singapore GP Private Limited, a company.
Despite ongoing concerns over potential tariff pressures, some 300 major American multinational corporations in Malaysia have chosen not to relocate their operations out of the country. The American Malaysia Chamber of Commerce, AmCham Chief Executive Officer Datuk Siobhan Das said their continued presence is largely supported by Malaysia's strong and well-established supply chain network.
I mean, at the end of the day, Malaysia is sitting in a very good place. It has a strong rationale for MNCs to be here, and that MNCs build out the SME ecosystem.
Malaysia continues to be a preferred destination for investors, particularly in strategic sectors driven by its robust supply chain infrastructure and investment-friendly government policies. U.S. President Donald Trump on Sunday said he would be announcing the tariff rate on imported semiconductors over the next week. He also said there would be some flexibility for certain companies in the sector.
But the tariffs will be in place in the not distant future because, as you know, like we did with steel, like we did with automobiles, like we did with aluminum, which are now fully on, we'll be doing that with semiconductors, with chips, and numerous other things, and that'll take place in the very near future.
Trump, however, declined to say whether some products, such as smartphones, would still be exempted. The president's pledge means that the exclusion of smartphones and computers from his reciprocal tariffs on China will likely be short-lived as Trump moves to reset trade policy in the semiconductor sector. Over 20 million ringgit worth of drugs seized. This and more from the local front after this breather. Welcome back. A man believed to be involved in the kidnapping of a teenage girl in Seremban was shot dead during a shootout with police in Klang early on Monday morning. In the kidnapping case that occurred last week, the victim, a 16-year-old girl, was abducted on April 10th and released a day later after a ransom was paid.
A ransom of 280,000 ringgit and several pieces of jewellery were handed over to the suspects before the girl was released in Sendayan. It was reported that the kidnappers had initially demanded a ransom of 2 million ringgit. Using the vehicle information obtained during the drop-off in Sendayan, police tracked the car's movements before eventually finding the 21-year-old suspect in Klang at around 5 a.m. on Monday. The driver, however, refused to cooperate and a high-speed chase ensued, ending along Jalan Bayu Tinggi in Bandar Bukit Tinggi.
Dalam kenderaan ni, suspek ni cuba ditahan. Lepas tu melawan arus, berlaku kejar-mengejar. Berlanggar dengan kenderaan polis dan kita pintas, berlaku tembak-menembak dan kita tembak mati.
A search of the vehicle uncovered a pistol and a machete. Earlier, police arrested 6 others in Sendayan aged between 21 and 30 to assist in investigations and recovered some 230,000 ringgit in cash along with other items. The 3 men and 3 women have been placed under remand until April 27th.
In Terengganu, the Kuala Terengganu High Court on Monday rejected a delivery man's appeal and upheld his 45-year prison sentence, along with 42 strokes of the cane initially imposed on him for committing sexual abuse and raping his stepdaughter.
The ruling was delivered by Judge Dato' Hassan Abdul Ghani. On February 29th, the Kuala Terengganu Sessions Court delivered the sentence after the 34-year-old man was found guilty of raping his stepdaughter. For the first 2 fourth charges, the accused was charged with raping the victim, who was then 11 years old, at a house in Kuala Nerus between June and November 2021. For the 5th charge, he was charged with sexually harassing the victim. The court ordered that the sentences for the first 3 charges be served consecutively, while the sentences for the remaining 2 charges were to be served concurrently.
Yoon denies insurrection charges. The details when Nightline returns. News from the foreign front. South Korea's former president Yoon Suk-yeol denied insurrection charges on Monday as the impeached leader appeared in court on the first day of his criminal trial over his martial law declaration. The ousted leader rejected all charges against him, insisting that the declaration was not a coup d'etat, but to maintain public order. Yoon countered that his actions were legal under constitutional emergency powers in the session, insisting that his proclamation was not an executable order, but a normative guideline. Prosecutors indicted Yoon for conspiring with the former defense minister to declare martial law without a legitimate national emergency, arguing that he tried to incite a rebellion and undermine constitutional order. Australia's ruling centre-left Labour could retain power with a slim majority after a national election on May 3rd, marking a reversal of sentiment from February when voters wanted the party out of office. A news poll survey conducted for the Australian newspaper released on Monday showed that support for the Liberal National Opposition Coalition has fallen below the level seen at the last election in 2022, while approval for Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has ticked up. Labour is ahead of the opposition 52 to 48 on a 2-party preferred basis under Australia's preferential voting system. The poll, conducted among just under 1,300 voters, follows a week dominated by market turmoil triggered by US President Donald Trump's tariff plans. And that concludes Nightline this time around. I'm Natasha Busst, and on behalf of TV3, we, the Nightline team, would like to extend our condolences to Tun Abdullah Ahmad Badawi's family. May he be placed among the righteous. Al-Fatiha.